Hello and welcome to another spoiler movie review right here on the World of Stew YouTube channel. As you can see behind me, up there, I've now fitted my Batman shelf to the wall. Not that has anything to do with this review, but just thought I'd mention it. Now I'm just waiting for my Batman animated figures to come, and once they're up, you'll be able to see them in all their glory. What's that got to do with this movie review? Absolutely nothing. But here I am in the leafy suburbs of Ebley, which is in Stroud in Gloucestershire. No longer in the city, yeah. And sans glasses today because there was this weird it didn't matter where I tried to do this video, there was a glare on my glasses which was distracting to me, so I'd imagine it would be distracting to anybody else who was finding themselves watching my video, if there is anybody out there listening. So what's the movie we are reviewing today? It's another superhero movie, and this time it is Spider-Man Homecoming, or Spider-Man 7, depending on... No, it wouldn't be 7, would it? It would be Spider-Man 6, depending on how you want to look at it. It is the sixth Spider-Man film we've had since 2002, I think Sam Raimi's first Spider-Man film came out. So what's that? That's 15 years, 6 Spider-Man movies in 15 years. Is that overkill? Yeah, let's be honest. I personally, going into Spider-Man Homecoming, did not need to see another Spider-Man. If you go back to 2002, Tobey Maguire as Spider-Man in Sam Raimi, like I say, the guy who brought us Evil Dead, his first Spider-Man film. It was good. It wasn't a bad Spider-Man film, but Willem Dafoe as the Green Goblin chewed up the scenery something chronic. But then that's what you've come to expect from Willem Dafoe, because he's not the greatest actor in the world now, is he? Let's be honest. Spider-Man 2, which prior to Spider-Man Homecoming has been my favourite Spider-Man film of all time. Is it still? Well, wait till the end of this video and you will find out. Had Alfred Molina playing Doc Ock, and it also had, obviously, James Franco reprising his role as Harry Osborn, friend slash enemy to Peter Parker and Spider-Man. And then we had Sam Raimi bring us Spider-Man 3, which was mired in controversy because he wanted to do a movie solely based around the story arc of the Sandman. The studio were like, "Oh, Sandman, no one knows who Sandman is. You must put in a popular villain. Stick in Venom." And then they cast Topher Grace from that 70s show as Venom, which just didn't work at all, really, did it? Let's be honest, it was pretty bad. In fact, it was so bad that Sony put the entire franchise on hold until in more recent times when they cast Andrew Garfield as the new Spider-Man in The Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2. Both films of which weren't necessarily well received by fans, but I didn't mind them. I thought Rhys Ifans was perfectly acceptable as Kurt Connors, who turns into the Lizard in the first Spider-Man, Amazing Spider-Man I should say, and Jamie Foxx was fine as Electro, although the young man who played the new version of the Green Goblin was pretty bad. Was that in the first Amazing Spider-Man or the second Amazing Spider-Man? I think it was the first. And of course we had Paul Giamatti, who never really showed up as Rhino until the end. But Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2 were not well received. They made a little bit of money, but it was enough for Sony to put off plans that they had for a Sinister Six movie. All of which led to Marvel getting their hands on Spider-Man. The deal was arranged between Sony and Marvel that Marvel would be able to make a Spider-Man movie. Now, if you don't understand why Marvel can't make Spider-Man movies as and when, Google it, use your Google foo, and just type in Marvel movie rights. And you'll be able to read all about how in the 80s and 90s Marvel were struggling as a comic book company, so sold the movie rights to a lot of their properties to various different companies, such as everything to do with the X-Men, which includes Wolverine and Deadpool, to Fox. And also they sold off other things such as Punisher, the Fantastic Four, and of course Spider-Man to Sony. Sony's Spider-Man movies weren't doing that well, so they agreed to let Marvel make a Spider-Man movie, which of course brought us to Spider-Man Homecoming. And Marvel wanted to do that, of course, because they want Spider-Man in the Avengers 3 and 4, also known as the Infinity War Part 1 and 2, depending on which reports you choose to believe. So this brings us to the new Spider-Man movie, Spider-Man Homecoming, in which Tom Holland, who last year or the year before, I think, won Best Newcomer at the BAFTAs here in England. He is the new Peter Parker slash Spider-Man, and the film begins. Obviously, we've seen him already as Spider-Man. We should just remind ourselves that he has played Spider-Man briefly in Captain America: Civil War, in which Iron Man calls upon him and he joins Iron Man's team to fight Captain America at the airport. And you get the Vanderus, and he jumps in, he steals Cap's shield, and blah 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 blah. So this film starts with the aftermath from the first Avengers film, in which of course the Chitauri and Loki fight the Avengers and level big massive swathes of New York. And we find our main protagonist in this film, Adrian Toomes, who will become the Vulture. But of course, anyone who's a Spider-Man fan already knew that. Played by Michael Keaton in this film. He's the leader of a cleanup crew who are given the big shaftaroo by I can't remember the name of it now, but it's like a Tony Stark funded cleanup crew who are there to take away all the alien tech to stop anyone else getting their hands on it. This, of course, pisses off Adrian Toomes, and you know he's not going to take it lying down. So we jump forward to the present day, and we find that he has formed this. We don't actually see any of the build-up of his Vulture suit. It just jumps forward in time, and he's like, yeah, here he is. He's the Vulture, and he's flying around now, and he's stealing tech, and he's doing all these things. So he never really has visions of grandeur. His plan is never to take over the world or to destroy the Avengers. In fact, he just wants to stay clear of the Avengers. He just wants to make a living. So he's kind of, in a way, a bit of a good guy in a villainous kind of flying around in an evil robotic suit type of way, if that makes sense. But while he's doing all this, we meet Peter Parker. And we see that while he was being picked up by Happy Hogan, Jon Favreau, who's back in that role in his film, he was being picked up by him to join Tony Stark for the events of Captain America: Civil War. He films the whole thing, so we get like this comical sort of video diary where he is filming himself being picked up, but he's then filming himself on the battlefield. And yeah, you've seen bits of it in the trailer, so you know the best bits of it are in the trailer, let's be honest. So nothing new there that you haven't already seen, to be honest. We then jump to the modern day, and Peter Parker is living in New York with his Aunt May, as you know, Marissa Tomei. I think that's her name, but I pronounced that completely wrong, and some of you are going to murder me in the comments below for that. But anyway, she's back as Aunt May, although she's hardly in this film, to be honest. He is thwarting small crime in New York. He's kind of just swinging around and stopping people from robbing bikes and that, but he has grandeur visions of grander things, because having been involved in the Civil War, he now wants to help the Avengers battle Nazis and space aliens and gods and all that kind of thing. But Tony Stark is kind of keeping him on a short leash and won't let him get involved. This leads to my sort of first bone of contention with this film, because Tony Stark has given Spider-Man this suit which looks like a traditional Spider-Man suit, and on the plus side, the eyes on the suit are amazing. They're brilliant. They react, they go up and down, they close, they open. They react with his face, basically, and that looked amazing. As far as I'm aware, the eyes didn't do that on the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man suit. I don't know if they did that on the Andrew Garfield suit, but I don't remember them doing that. It certainly looks amazing here. The problem with the suit, however, is that it's like a cloth version of an Iron Man suit, in so much as he has like a heads up. Once he unlocks, he's on like a training thing. He doesn't even realise, but he's on a training program. So he hasn't unlocked all the elements of the suit. But when he does, it's basically like an Iron Man suit. It's got like a heads up display, a voice that talks to him. He's got like 500 different variations of web shooting. It's just, for me, it just doesn't work. I don't see why Spider-Man would need all that kind of thing. He's a kid from New York. He doesn't need a heads-up display. He doesn't need a voice. I mean, it's purely there for him to talk to and talk through his relationship woes and blah blah blah. And no, it's not for me. I would have quite enjoyed him being in a suit that looked like that without all the robotic technology in it, because it was just crap for me. Didn't work for me, didn't like it. Just the eyes on the suit was what I liked. So, whilst he's doing all these little jobs, his best friend discovers that he is Spider-Man, because, as you know, in these films, no superhero gets to keep their secret identity for more than about 2 minutes. And, even in the Spider-Man 2, Sam Raimi's film, when he takes off his mask and everyone like carrying him like some pseudo Jesus. Like, everybody now knows what Spider-Man looks like. Can't keep his identity secret for more than about 2 seconds. So his friend finds out that he's Spider-Man. He kind of then agrees to keep the secret, but doesn't do a very good job of it. We discover at school that Peter is obviously in the debate club. He's in like all these nerdy clubs. And here is where my second and third bone of contention with this film come. First of all, I have a real issue with the version of Flash Thompson that we get in this film. Now, I'm not a big Spider-Man fan, but I know that Flash Thompson is a big blonde jock that beats Peter Parker up and doesn't treat him very nice. Well, in this film, we get a young Asian dude who is as big a nerd as Peter Parker, but is rich. So he's just a bit of a douchebag and likes to throw his money around. But he doesn't bully Peter Parker, not physically anyway. He just kind of gives him the verbal smackdown, which just doesn't work for me. I can see why they've done it, because everyone's complaining about women not getting enough roles in movies and not enough ethnic diversity, blah, blah, blah. There's a time and a place for these things. And for my money, recasting the character of Flash Thompson in this way is just rubbish. And then we come to the actress from the Disney Channel, Zendaya, or whatever her name is. Again, apologies for mispronouncing her name. Should have looked it up, but really couldn't be bothered. She's in the preamble going into this film was that she was going to play Mary Jane Watson. She denied this, and she was quite right to deny it, because she plays a character called Michelle, who serves no purpose other than to appear every now and again and make some snide comment, because she's like the sort of gothy loner teen who doesn't really like anybody. And when I say she serves no purpose, that's right until the very end of the film, which we'll get to shortly, and which pissed me off. So Spider-Man, whilst he's doing all these small crimes and not being allowed to do any big crime, he's not doing crimes, he's solving crimes, because he's Spider-Man. He uncovers that a guy called Shocker is going around selling bits of alien tech, which is obviously coming from Adrian Toomes, or the Vulture, and his crew. Spider-Man tries to stop them, ends up nearly dying, and Iron Man saves him. Iron Man then says, "Look, pal, you need to chill out a bit and just concentrate on the small crimes. You are not ready for the big leagues." Spider-Man, of course, doesn't listen. Whilst he's going around doing all this, by the way, there is a girl at school called Liz, who he fancies and who he asks to the dance, and she agrees, because she's a bit of a nerd as well. There's no Gwen Stacy and there's no Mary Jane in this film. Interestingly, why do I mention Liz? Again, towards the end of the film, all will become clear. So Spider-Man is trying to track down all this alien tech. He's completely ignoring Iron Man's advice. This leads to the scene that you'll have seen in the trailer where the Staten Island ferry gets chopped in half and Spider-Man tries to hold it together with his webs, which is very reminiscent of a similar scene he did where he stops the train that I mentioned before in Spider-Man 2 with his webs before he does the pseudo-Jesus thing. Again, it was fine, but too reminiscent of what we've seen before. Nothing really new for me. Anyway, Iron Man turns up, he saves the day. He balls Peter out, says, "What are you doing? Give me the suit back, you loser." Takes the suit off him and then gives him this speech about it's not the suit that makes the man, it's the man that makes the suit, blah, 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 blah. And again, this will become important later on. So Peter's now back in his normal suit. He's going to go to the dance with Liz, and who does Liz's dad turn out to be? Bum, bum, bum. Adrian Toomes. Yes, that's right. Her dad is the Vulture. Not that she knows this, of course, because he's the Vulture in secret. Um, we get this little sort of tense standoff where the Vulture says, "I know you're Peter Parker," and Peter Parker's like, "I know you're the Vulture," and they're like, "Well, you better leave me alone, pal, otherwise I'm going to kill everyone you love." Now, bearing in mind he loves his daughter, does that mean he's going to kill his own kid? I don't think so, but the inference is there. They then have a final battle. The Vulture, well, a penultimate battle, should we say. The Vulture buries him under a building, so it looks like he's dead. And he goes off to rob a Tony Stark plane, which is full of Iron Man gear and alien stuff. Peter Parker is in his crappy little homemade suit, and he is stuck under all this rubble. And he's like crying, going, I'm stuck. Let me out. I'm stuck. Which was not quite as bad as Tobey Maguire's goth Spider-Man in Spider-Man 3, but it was pretty bad. He then remembers the "it's not the suit, it's the man" speech from Tony Stark, powers his way out. He finds the Vulture. They have a massive final battle in which the plane crashes and stuff. Spider-Man obviously wins, and Adrian Toomes goes off to prison. Peter Parker is then offered a chance to join the Avengers by Tony Stark. He declines, saying, "I'm not ready yet, mate." And Tony Stark's like, "Well, I told you that, and now I'm offering you a chance, you bloody ungrateful little git." Peter Parker just goes, "Nah, you're alright, pal. I'm off to go and do my own thing," so to speak. After that, we get Liz obviously leaving because her dad's on trial and her mum doesn't want to stay around. So they disappear, and we get the big reveal that Michelle Zendenia, whatever her name is, she's going to be the new leader of the debate team. And this is the bombshell here. She goes, "People call me MJ." At which point, all I wanted to do was, oh my god. It's just it reminds me so much of Lost in the way that they clearly had an end game. People found out their end game. They denied it and then went with the end game anyway. To say that she's not MJ, but then she is MJ, but she's a different. It's just bollocks. Let's be honest. It's just bollocks. And while we're talking about bollocks, where in the hell is Spidey's spider sense or Spider-Man's Spidey sense? Where is it? It's just not. It's non-existent in this film. Apparently, the director has said that he will grow into it, but where does that ever come in any version? And again, I'm not a Spider-Man expert, but it's just crap. It's just changing things for the sake of being different and whatever. At the end, we get a couple of post-credit scenes. The first one is Adrian Toomes in prison. He's approached by a guy that we met earlier in the film called Matt Gargan, who is going to become the Scorpion later on down the line. Well, he is the Scorpion in the comic book, so the inference, I guess, is that there might be a Scorpion in a future Spider-Man film. There's lots of characters in this film, actually. Little nods to the Spider-Man mythos. There's a guy called the Prowler in the comic books. His alter ego appears in this film. The alter ego of the Tinkerer appears in this film. And not that they do their villain roles, it's just they're just character names. There's a sort of little nod to, fans of the comic books. And the final, Matt Gargan, he approaches Adrian Toomes and says, "You know Spider-Man's real identity. Tell me." And Adrian Toomes is like, No, I don't. I don't know his secret identity at all. That's nonsense. So quite while he's doing that, maybe he's Michael Keaton signed another movie deal, and he's going to reprise his role as the Vulture in a later movie and try and get revenge. Although I don't quite see how, because as far as I'm aware, once the Infinity War is over, Spider-Man is going back to Sony, who are working on their own Spider-Man friendly universe. As we speak, there is going to be, of course, the aforementioned Venom film starring Tom Hardy, and there's also going to be some Black Cat movie and Silver Samurai, I think they were talking about as well. Just loads of nonsense. And the final post-credit scene is a big troll FU to fans as Captain America comes up doing a public service announcement telling people that patience can be a virtue, but sometimes you don't get what you want. basically sticking at the end of the film going, you're looking for something for Infinity War. Well, screw you, because you're not getting it. And that was Spider-Man Homecoming. Now, it took like $117 million or something in its opening weekend, and I'm sure it's going to take a shitload of cash. Marvel, to be honest, with this film, it's their second, in my opinion, their second consecutive slightly ropey film. Doctor Strange wasn't fantastic, and again, Spider-Man Homecoming, as alright as it is, just feels unnecessary. It just feels like it's treading old ground. Doesn't really add anything new. It's just, I really didn't need another Spider-Man film. And whilst Tom Holland is great as Spidey, it's just whatevs. You know, as I've said before, I am kind of tired of the superhero genre right now, and I'm not sure if any film is going to get me reinvigorated and excited. I'm just hoping that Thor Ragnarok does the trick. As for a score for Spider-Man Homecoming, I should just mention as well, of course, Stan Lee does his obligatory cameo, one of the weakest ones, to be honest, in all the appearances he's made in any of the Marvel films. Certainly not a patch on his appearance in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. And there's also a nice little nod at the beginning where they play a sort of version of the original Spider-Man theme from the old 70s cartoon. You know, the one that goes, Spider-Man, Spider-Man, does whatever a spider can, spins a web any size, catches thieves just like flies. Look out, here comes the Spider-Man. That's the only time I'm ever going to sing on any of these videos, and I'm sure you understand why. Yeah, nice little nod there. But in closing, Spider-Man Homecoming was fine. Probably on a par with Wonder Woman. Certainly better than any of the other DCEU movies. As good as Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, but then I wasn't really in love with that film either. I'm going to give it 7.5, maybe 8 out of 10, which kind of says that I really liked it, but I didn't, because for a film to be really good, it's got to be getting 9s, 9.5s. It's just meh. It hasn't reinvigorated my love of superhero movies, and at this point, I'm not sure